Boulder, Colorado, a 6-year-old child who had fallen asleep with dreams of toys and holiday lights would never wake up again. And by sunrise, her name, JonBenet Ramsey, would become one of the most haunting and endlessly debated mysteries in American true crime history. A case so disturbing that nearly 3 decades later, it still leaves investigators, journalists, and ordinary people divided, unsettled, and searching for answers. JonBenet Patricia Ramsey was not an ordinary child in the public eye. Born on August 6, 1990, she lived a life that looked almost unreal from the outside. Growing up in a wealthy household with her father John Ramsey, a successful business executive, her mother Patsy Ramsey, a former beauty queen, and her older brother Burke, in a picturesque neighborhood where safety seemed assumed rather than questioned. And from a young age, JonBenet was placed into the world of child beauty pageants, where she wore glittering dresses, perfect curls, and practiced smiles, a life that brought her trophies and attention, but also later fueled controversy, judgment, and suspicion after her death, as videos and photographs of her pageant performances were replayed endlessly on television screens across the nation, turning a little girl into a symbol rather than a child. Those who knew JonBenet personally described her as affectionate, playful, and full of energy, a child who loved performing but also enjoyed normal childhood moments, playing with toys, spending time with her family, and clinging to her mother's affection. And in the days leading up to Christmas 1996, the Ramsey family appeared to be preparing for a joyful holiday, attending parties, exchanging gifts, and making plans to travel, unaware that their lives were about to fracture in a way no family ever imagines. On the night of December 25, 1996, after returning home from a Christmas gathering at a friend's house, JonBenet was reportedly carried upstairs asleep, dressed in white pajamas, tucked into bed by her parents, and left in what should have been the safest place she knew. Yet sometime during the night, something went terribly wrong. And when morning came, the horror revealed itself in a way that would shock the nation. At approximately 5:52 a.m. on December 26th, Patsy Ramsey placed a frantic call to 911, her voice shaking as she told the dispatcher that her daughter had been kidnapped, explaining that she had found a ransom note on the back staircase of their home, a lengthy handwritten message demanding $118,000 for JonBenet's safe return, an oddly specific amount that matched John Ramsey's recent bonus, and warning the family not to contact police, a warning they immediately ignored, setting in motion a chain of events that investigators would later describe as chaotic, compromised, and tragically flawed. As police arrived at the Ramsey home, they were faced with a scene that did not resemble a typical kidnapping. JonBenet's bedroom showed no obvious signs of forced entry or struggle. The ransom note was unusually long and theatrical, and friends and family members were invited into the house, moving freely, cleaning surfaces, and unintentionally contaminating what would become one of the most critical crime scenes in modern history, while officers waited for a ransom call that never came. Hours passed in tense uncertainty until, shortly after 1 p.m., John Ramsey, instructed by police to search the house from top to bottom, descended into the basement with a family friend, where in a small windowless storage room, he made a discovery that would forever alter the case. JonBenet's lifeless body lay on the floor, wrapped in a white blanket, her mouth covered with duct tape, her wrists loosely bound with cord, and a garrote fashioned from a broken paintbrush tightened around her neck, confirming that this was not a kidnapping at all, but a brutal homicide carried out inside the family's own home. The shock of finding JonBenet in the basement shifted the investigation instantly from a missing child to a murder case. Yet by that point, crucial hours had already been lost. Evidence had been disturbed, and the scene had been irreversibly compromised, leaving investigators struggling to reconstruct what truly happened during the silent hours of that Christmas night. Early forensic findings revealed that JonBenet had suffered a severe blow to the head, causing a skull fracture, and had been strangled, though the sequence of these injuries would later become a point of intense debate among experts. Some arguing that she was knocked unconscious and later strangled, others suggesting a more complex timeline, while evidence of sexual assault added another deeply disturbing layer to the crime, intensifying public outrage and speculation. In the early days of the investigation, police focused heavily on the ransom note, analyzing its handwriting, language, and bizarre tone, noting references to movies, dramatic phrasing, and inconsistencies that made it feel staged rather than authentic, and attention quickly turned toward those closest to JonBenet, as statistics and investigative logic often point inward when a child is killed inside their own home. The Ramsey family found themselves under an intense spotlight, with John and Patsy scrutinized for their behavior, emotional responses, and perceived inconsistencies in their statements, while Burke Ramsey, only 9 years old at the time, became a quiet figure at the center of whispered theories, despite his young age. Investigators questioned why the ransom amount matched John's bonus, why the note was written on paper from inside the home, why the alleged kidnapper had taken the time to write such a long message, and why no attempt was made to remove the child from the house, while the parents' decision to invite friends over and the father's handling of the body raised further concerns, though supporters argued that shock and grief can lead to irrational behavior. As the case unfolded, numerous early leads emerged, including the possibility of an intruder supported by a broken basement window that John Ramsey claimed had been damaged earlier, unidentified fibers found on JonBenet's body, and DNA evidence that did not conclusively match any family member, giving rise to the theory that an outsider had entered the home, committed the crime, and vanished without a trace. Yet alongside these leads came red herrings that muddied the waters, from rumors about secret affairs and financial motives to exaggerated claims about the pageant world attracting predators, while media coverage grew increasingly sensational, turning speculation into headlines and eroding the line between evidence and rumor. The investigation became plagued by internal conflicts between the Boulder Police Department and the district attorney's office, with disagreements over strategy, leaks to the press, and accusations of bias, creating an environment where progress slowed and trust fractured, all while the public demanded answers. In 1999, a grand jury was convened to examine the evidence, and though it ultimately voted to indict John and Patsy Ramsey on charges related to child abuse resulting in death, the district attorney chose not to pursue the indictments, citing insufficient evidence to secure a conviction, a decision that remained sealed for years and later fueled further controversy when the grand jury's findings were made public, raising questions about what the jurors believed had occurred inside the Ramsey home. As years passed, the case shifted through phases of renewed hope and crushing disappointment, with DNA testing advancements offering brief moments of promise, including the analysis of unknown male DNA found on JonBenet's clothing, evidence that proponents of the intruder theory argue points away from the family, while skeptics question the contamination and relevance of the sample, noting that it has never conclusively identified a suspect. Various individuals were publicly named, investigated, and later cleared, including a local man who falsely confessed to the murder, only to be exposed as unreliable, and other suspects whose alleged connections dissolved under scrutiny, each new theory igniting public debate before fading into uncertainty. In 2006, Patsy Ramsey died of ovarian cancer without ever being charged, maintaining her innocence until the end, while John Ramsey continued to advocate for renewed investigation and advanced DNA testing, insisting that the real killer was still out there, as documentaries, books, and televised specials revisited the case again and again, each offering a different interpretation of the same fragmented evidence. The climax of the JonBenet Ramsey case does not arrive with a courtroom verdict or a confession, but with a lingering sense of unresolved dread, as the truth remains buried beneath mistakes, assumptions, and time. leaving behind a chilling question that refuses to fade. Who killed JonBenet Ramsey, and how could such a crime occur in a home filled with Christmas lights, wealth, and apparent safety? Today, the case stands as one of the most infamous unsolved murders in U.S. history, a reminder of how quickly innocence can be shattered and how justice can slip through the cracks when early missteps cloud the path forward. And as investigators continue to call for modern DNA analysis and renewed attention, JonBenet's story remains suspended between justice and mystery, her face forever frozen in pageant smiles, her voice silenced before she ever had the chance to grow up, leaving the world to wrestle with the haunting truth that sometimes, even when the entire nation is watching, answers never come.